I am worthy. I am enough. I am lovable. Really? Come across affirmations and approach them with the eyes of a skeptical old man? Well, me too. Today we're gonna dissect them real hard before I come up with a foolproof approach. So before another friend, guru, or article tells you to just do it, let's not follow blindly, okay? Affirmation in its most stale sense is just a statement or sign that something is true, which really doesn't mean much, but is really important to bring up, and I'll mention why in my second argument. When we think of affirmations as a mental health tool though, the practice can be summed up as positive statements that can help you overcome self-sabotaging negative thoughts. This definition captures the conventional use as a tool pretty well in terms of intervening your negative self-talk through reframing them. But I still don't love that definition, so I wanted to take it a step further and redefine it as nurturing statements to help reframe and challenge our adaptive judgmental self. The issue I take with a common definition is that it employs positive and negative as extremities, like black and white and good and bad. And labeling thoughts and even emotions as negative causes us to shun away from them. And vice versa, labeling things as positive causes us to abuse them, and we become adrenaline or positive vibes only junkies. So using nurture to replace positive introduces taking care regardless of good or bad, and adaptive judgmental in place of negative to emphasize that a lot of who we are and our inner voice are coping mechanisms that we adapted in response to our upbringing and environment. So with this definition, we're not blaming ourselves and taking a kinder approach to care for that quote-unquote negative self-talk. Now let's dive into why affirmations may or may not work. Remember pros and cons in school? Yep, we're going there. Let's start with the yes, they do work. And I'll be framing the arguments in terms of the helpful assumptions that affirmations make. And the first beneficial assumption it makes is that we are mindful. In an increasingly distracting and stimulating world, mindfulness is easily that child lost in a mega multi-complex mall and using our last thought and brain cell after that dopamine hit and thinking that much deeper about what we're doing is way beyond social expectation these days. So even though this may not seem that significant, it really is. So give yourself a pat in the back for watching this and a huge round of applause for you. People seek affirmations because they're reflecting on their personal core values, troubleshooting issues and thoughts that are blocking them from happiness and really want to do something about them. We've all heard the term planting the seeds, and for us to seek affirmations is planting that mindful seed within us so we can repeatedly water them through those breather moments when we recite the affirmations. While mindfulness may not mean much without practice, it's still starting somewhere and helps us recognize our adaptive critical self-talk, and sometimes that is really all we need for that flip in the switch that pushes us onto the path of peace and happiness. The second and juicier beneficial assumption and reality that affirmations make about us is that we can change. We often view ourselves as pretty set in stone, especially with our morals and personality traits, and in an increasingly noisy world where reputation and fame have become royalty, we cling even harder onto identifiers or traits we think molds us to find our solid place in the world. So sometimes we find ourselves in the same problems, the same confrontations, and the same self-doubts, and feel like there really is no way out. But affirmations challenges the we can't change assumption through our brain's capacity to change, or neuroplasticity. Our brain is made up of dynamic neural networks, and as the word network implies, they are comprised of neuron pathways that consistently make new connections, forge new paths, or in simpler terms, rewiring. Neuroplasticity is what allows us to learn new skills, new languages, and helps guide us through our developmental stages. Ironically, though our brains are intelligent to some capacity, neuroplasticity doesn't distinguish between imagination and our perceived reality. So affirmations step in to build that mental image of what you wish to become and thereby tricks your brain to believe those as facts. Which goes back to the first definition of affirmation, a statement that something is true. In this case, your aspirational nurturing self is in fact true. So say your adaptive judgmental self always keeps telling you that you are not enough, perhaps due to your upbringing, then your affirmation of I am enough helps intervene those judgy comments and your neural pathways are taking note. And I think it's also important to recognize that this very faulty mechanism is also exactly what makes your adaptive judge think the way they do. For example, if we're always conditioned to always receive non-affirming comments through our childhood, our neural pathways, even if we don't believe it to be true, are taking those comments as real, and therefore we adapt that narrative as our own. So affirmations turn the table and say, joke's on you, highly critical self. And now time to play devil's advocate. And the main reason why affirmations don't work is that they don't get to the root of your issues. Like trees, we all have our roots, whether they are beautiful, joy-filled, or traumatic. Affirmations for me is that tip of the iceberg tool that goes back to why I take issue with affirmations' conventional definition. Affirmations focus on the quote-unquote good and positive as a tool set to help you overcome or replace the bad, which propels us into that cycle of only chasing the positive and feel-good emotions while enticing us to neglect watering our wounded roots. I talked about the significance of understanding our childhoods in our Upward Mobile Psychology video, but the same way that we can't forever watch TV or do drugs or buy things or work non-stop for money, we can't always just be chasing the feel-good moments while shunning away from the bad. One of the common complaints about affirmations, especially starting out, is that affirmations feel awkward or stupid. While it's really hard to distinguish between being unaccustomed to talking to ourselves in a kinder way or whether they actually just don't work, the discomfort stems from us doubting whether affirmations are just too good to be true. And in some ways they are. I view affirmations as that nice ointment cream you can apply or the band-aid that you can use when you're noticing symptoms that are obviously bothering you. But if the symptoms are part of a larger chronic disease, no matter how much oil spills of ointment or fortresses of band-aids you apply, the issues will always still be there. That's when deeper inquiries or studies are required, whether that's with a therapist or a spiritual teacher or through really unfiltered contemplative reflection. So I think at best, affirmations really help manage your inner adaptive self, so World War III isn't a daily occurrence. But if your adaptive self is working with more deeply rooted thoughts stemming from I don't deserve love or I am not enough, affirmations will not be the cure for it. And the second reason why affirmations may not work, talking may now, is that they can set unrealistic expectations. I think like manifestations, affirmations have that very alluring quality that really brings out our magical thinking. And oftentimes when we consider using affirmations as a tool, we often have very specific goals in mind, like I will get that job or I will find that love of my life. And when we're so fixated on achieving a certain goal, we're not setting ourselves up for success, since as we all know too well, life doesn't always go the way we want it to. And using affirmations to manifest outcomes makes us focus on things that are beyond our control and also future driven, both of which detracts from our real life, this very moment. It also gives permission to make our happiness and peace conditional. Like only if I get that job, then will I be happy, or only when I find the lover, then will I be happy. In that sense, when affirmations fixate on results, they can be another channel to disappoint and to let ourselves down. But not all hope is lost. When we focus on affirmations that are within the bounds of what we can control or highlight general traits about ourselves, then they can work. Like if you really want that job, then perhaps rather than I will get that job, then it becomes I am a capable and skilled worker and there's no hurdles I can't work through. Rather than fixating on an outcome, affirmations help nurture your healthy esteem and makes you accountable to be your own agent of happiness, and ultimately guide you through step by step until you find that sense of happiness or peace, whether or not your original goals were met. I will note that results and future-based affirmations are very common on the internet, so just watch out, and I'll also go into some tips on how to come up with your own affirmations in a bit. And finally, affirmations may not work because they are just words. Affirmations can directly impact how we view ourselves and eventually impact how we show up in the world, but they can also just be talk if we don't walk that talk. We all know people who just talk the talk and not walk the talk, and we know how they make us feel, that we can't rely on them and that we can't trust them. The same holds true for affirmations. If we truly want change and don't practice our affirmations with actions, then affirmations are just another feel-good coping mechanism. At that point, we might as well just turn to other personality tests, astrology, or even the Myers-Briggs to affirm our self-concepts. Back to the job example. If you don't make a case for yourself and go out there and apply for jobs and actually show up for the interviews, you will never be able to witness that you are a capable and skilled worker and that there are no hurdles you can't work through. And you end up blaming the affirmations for it when in fact the affirmations were just there as words of encouragement for yourself to really take that first step. And when you can build the case and find living examples of your affirmations, your adaptive judgmental self will slowly wither as your nurturing self shows them who's boss. So if you've gotten to this point and still feel like, yes, let's give them a try, I'll give you some thought starters on how to come up with affirmations on your own and also show you some of mine to help you brainstorm. I'll make this simple, I promise. To come up with your affirmations, the guiding principles are already within you. As we discussed, that adaptive judgmental self is very opinionated. It's like TMZ, no one asked, but still they're chattering and having some gossip or hot take always and really draining you. So listen to it. What are those judgmental comments saying? Some common things that underlie all your thoughts that are rooted in insecurity and shame include not doing enough, not being able to do something, not being enough, not deserving love, not deserving what you want, or not having enough. Listen carefully to what your inner judge is saying and write them down. And though it may be painful, write it down verbatim so you're not filtering your thoughts. Don't feel embarrassed or even ironically judgy against your adaptive self. Be kind to it so you can take the next step to help nurture it. It's your safe space. And I also want you to take a moment to thank them for the thoughts. Thanking those thoughts for their feedback will allow you to make space for the affirmations to come and shed that forgiveness for them to dissolve. Once you jotted those thoughts down and thanked them for their time, it's time to reframe them. Take those judgmental adaptive comments and find the opposite of them. So if it's a common one like I am not enough, then simply make it I am enough. For any of the future or results-based ones, make sure you transcribe them into an inherent trait you want to embody or actionable things. Don't let affirmations be another reason to disappoint yourself. I'm not going to do an emotional dump of my own life because the internet is not my journal, but I'll share some of the ones I use to give you some examples on how I reframe the judgmental thoughts. So for example, instead of I sometimes feel like a burden to others, I reframed it as I ask for what I need and help others when I can. And instead of trying my best means fixing everything right here, right now, it's I do what I can and let the uncontrollable be tomorrow's problem. And the world can be a dangerous place and has its way of getting me. Now becomes I trust the universe has got my back. I am loved. And finally, I need to accomplish X and X to be happy to I simply am. Peace, joy, and love are always available to me. So take some time to think through what the opposites of your judgmental comments look like and reframe them so that they are nourishing to you. Lean on your senses while at it. When you read them aloud, do they give you a warm hug or nourish you like a good enough mother will? That's a helpful guiding principle. And finally, make a commitment to them. Like thanking your adaptive self, thanking your affirmation means being committed to nurturing yourself. It could be saying them once a day for 3 months or even 2 to even 3 times a day for 30 days. Make it a schedule that you follow so it doesn't fall off after 1 week and you feel like they haven't taken effect and really changed your life. We're so used to that hypercritical self talking back at us since the moment we were born, so this will really take time to take effect as well. Let yourself feel awkward, stupid, or silly while doing them. Practice rewires your brain, and in the long run your brain will start believing them as the fact. And again, I want to emphasize that affirmations will not be the solve for everything. So if throughout the committed practice you find yourself not convinced or having realizations and insights about more deeply rooted issues, then seeking help to work through them will be crucial. If you found this video helpful, give it some affirmation and like and subscribe or even a share if you dare. And until then, you got this. Till next time.